Welcome back to the Rewatch Room and welcome back to Byler O'Clock. I'm Matt.
I'm Kendall.
Today we're going to be talking about Byler. This is the long-awaited Byler-focused episode of our podcast, and there's a lot of ground to cover in a small amount of time. So we're going to do our best, and anything that we miss or don't cover, I will cover in a video essay that I'm working on my channel. So, here you go.
All right, let's kick it off. I will preface with saying that I am not a Byler stan. Not that I'm a 11, but I am Switzerland. I am somewhere in the middle. And so I need to preface with that because I'm not biased. And I originally, and I know you know this, but I originally thought that you were a little crazy when you first told me about Byler. And it wasn't until we actually talked about it, and then I went back and I rewatched some of the earlier seasons, but then also really noticed it in season 5. And that for me was when I started to see what you were talking about. And I don't think you're crazy. I see it. And
It's there.
It's definitely there. And one of the things that I've now told you, but there is evidence throughout the entire series, but also especially even in the last season, that I now don't even understand why they did what they did, considering Byler didn't happen.
Yeah. You're referring to the evidence, right? I'm assuming. Yeah, all of the evidence that I found in my rewatch series, because most people watching know this, you know this, but I was the person who famously, and I say famously because everything ended up going really viral with this. I made a 11 Byler take back in July of 2025, which feels weird because it still feels like 2025, even though it's not 2025. But I made that take and I made that video where I said that, if Byler were to happen, I'm all for it as long as the evidence is there and it's well written, but that I myself had not seen the evidence. And so I was erring on the side of 11. I was respectfully encouraged to do the rewatch and specifically look for signs that Mike may have repressed feelings for Will and that Mike might be closeted. So that's what I did. And the majority of the evidence I found in that series, none of it makes any sense anymore because it didn't happen. And that's just, I've thought about it a lot. Again, this is my full-time job, content creation, film and TV analysis. And I've spent a lot of time, probably more time, significantly more than the average viewer, I would say. And I've thought about it and none of it makes sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't serve any purpose for the plot. It doesn't play a role in Will's arc of self-acceptance. It's because all of my series was focused on Mike, because by the time that I started that, obviously we already knew by that point that Will is gay and has romantic feelings for Mike, is in love with Mike. That was very clearly established in season 4.
It was always clear that Will had feelings for Mike. It was always whether or not Mike had feelings for Will. And originally I didn't see it. I did not see what people were talking about. And then there's just literally just within this last season, I don't understand why they did what they did. And here's the thing is whether or not you're a Byler, you're a 11, what they did to that relationship with Mike and 11 and also Mike and Will is just bad. I know that there are some people that didn't mind what happened with Mike and 11, and that's fine. But I do think that even if I was an 11, I would have been extremely disappointed with how they wrapped up that relationship, let alone what they did with Byler. And I know we've talked about this, but if I was a Byler, I would feel incredibly disrespected by the Duffer brothers. What they did in the season finale on the electrical tower is genuinely it's disrespectful to the fan base and to the audience. And that's really my main issue, is that I think it's okay if it's not going to happen, but you can't make fun of your fans. And especially if you're making fun of your fans for something that clearly was a big enough thing that you had millions of people believing it and seeing it. And then also, you guys were alluding to it too. Like it's not that your fan base is crazy and they made something up. They literally were alluding to it. The cast was alluding to it. So you can't just all of a sudden make fun of your entire fan base.
I hated that line. Yeah. And I agree. I was really surprised because we saw it in theaters, and when that line started, when Mike started talking, I already at that point, there was like a semblance of potential hope there that maybe there was going to be a conversation sparked. But the second with, I don't know, the no thanks aspect, like once that line was said, I just felt like there's no way that's going to stem into an actual meaningful emotional conversation. And then, I don't know, I made like an intro to a video where I was like, queer relationships? No thanks. Queer baiting. Because that's what it was.
Yeah.
That's what it was. And it's shocking to me because they knew the existence of the Byler community. They knew what a lot of the evidence was. And I know that because, as you said, they talked about it. In the marketing material, they talked about it. They addressed the existence of the Byler fandom. They addressed how vocal the Byler fandom was, which is also a bit of a shot taken at the Byler side of the fandom, which I am a part of. But the reason they're so vocal, the reason we were also vocal, is because all of the evidence was there. As you said, they built it up. So it's not, we aren't delusional. All of the evidence is there. It's tangible. I have a bunch of videos on it. There's people who have hours-long videos on it.
Yep.
It's there. And I couldn't believe, I agree, like the level of disrespect was crazy. And then to say after the season, we never had intended on Byler being a thing, ever. If that were to be the case, why did you do all of the things that you did in the show? Good example, I've talked about this a lot, but all of the parallels where you constantly have Mike and Will together being paralleled against the canon couples in the show. You have a lot of parallels that are one-to-one. Exactly, they shot the same. The lines of dialogue are very similar with subtle differences that paint Byler in the healthier light and paint Maleven in the more toxic light. But you have so many where it's a direct parallel between a Maleven argument, maybe, and a Byler moment. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the times they're also like in back-to-back episodes or even in the same episode. And that's very intentional film language. That's not something that you just accidentally do. And they don't do that with any of the other friendships in the show. They only do parallels like that with the relationships in the show. Kind of like they paralleled a Mike and 11 scene from season 4 with Nancy and Steve's breakup, I guess, because they kind of broke up off screen, but the argument they had before their relationship was cooked. There's a parallel between those two scenes where Nancy can't tell Steve that she loves him because she doesn't, and then Mike, the other Wheeler, can't tell 11 that he loves her despite the fact that she's begging for it. She is
still couldn't.
Begging for it, and he still couldn't.
Yeah.
And sure, they tried to give us a reason later in the season that he was just essentially worried about being inferior and losing her and her not needing him. That doesn't make any sense.
No, it makes
no
sense.
To not say, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And there's obviously a lot of things that don't make sense. But anyway, for them to say they never intended on it, yet they put all of that stuff in the show, as you said, they had, everything actors say a lot of the time in interviews is either scripted or there are certain things they are and are not allowed to say. Right. You have multiple interviews where Noah Schnapp, for example, talks about how they're building Byler. They're building it up. Why would you allow him to say that if it was never going to happen? And if you truly knew it was never going to happen, why did you not shut it down earlier? Because a lot of other shows do that. When they're not intending on a queer ship to be together, they shut it down as to avoid queerbaiting. But they queerbaited throughout the entire show, all the way up into the literal, like one of the very last moments that Mike and Will have together. They just kept that thread, kept dangling the keys just until the very last second.
Yep.
And I hate it. I couldn't believe they did it in the way they did it. Again, it's not as much about it didn't happen. It's because the reason I wanted it to happen was because of the evidence. It's not because of, a bias or personal experience that I wanted to see myself in those characters, which is the case and is valid for a lot of the Byler fandom. For me, it was just, now that I see all this evidence, this has to happen because this is the correct writing choice based on what was established in earlier seasons. So,
and I was going to say, so I want to talk about a couple of the things that I noticed rewatching, and also some of the things that you told me that did make me see it and saw, because I really did think I thought it could go either way. But one of the main things is the rain scene. And especially when you showed me that it's basically a 1-for-1 of that TV show.
Yeah. I still forget the name of it. I still forget the name, and I should have locked that in by now.
But there's
everyone will know what we're talking about.
There's this TV show that is the exact same shot, and not even just the same shot in color grading, but it's the exact same dialogue, basically.
Same environment, too.
Yeah,
they're in a garage, I think.
Yeah.
It's raining in the background. There's a car in the background. It's the same
It's the exact same thing. And that show is about two closeted men that have feelings for each other.
I believe so, yeah. I believe that's what the case is.
And also, back to Divorcegate, wasn't the ex-wife that helped with the show, wasn't she a fan of that TV show?
I don't know, so I can't speak on that. I would believe it. I have been told that she does write queer relationships in her material, in her shows. That I don't remember the name. She's worked on a really popular, it's either a show or like a movie trilogy.
Yeah.
Is it Fear Street?
Yeah, I think so.
That sounds right.
That
could be wrong. So if it's wrong, sorry, but that sounds right.
Yeah.
And I believe she is somebody who does write relationships in a really compelling way like that it just aligns kind of with the way that it was being set up. So yeah, I mean, there's no evidence necessarily, like hard evidence behind it, but it's obviously speculative. However, speculation feels it feels tangible.
Yeah.
It feels like an actual possibility. Just considering the decline in the writing in general for season 5. That was so completely different from the past seasons.
But then it's also, again, why do that if that wasn't your intent? The other thing that I noticed so much throughout the entire series is how Mike treats Will is completely different to how Mike treats literally anybody else, even including 11. Actually, the only time that Mike has maybe treated anyone as good as he treats Will and like as caring as he treats Will is season 1 when he's with 11. Then he's way more protective. But otherwise, Mike's kind of an asshole to all of his friends and 11. But with Will, he is so caring throughout the entire series. And, it just feels very much like they were going down that path.
Yes.
And then chickened out, or maybe Divorcegate, or who knows, or maybe they truly weren't planning it. That's also a real possibility. But then again, why do any of what you did?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, there's even the voice.
Yeah.
I think there's a name for it, Mike's Will voice or whatever. If you rewatch the show and you're actually paying attention to the show, he does speak to Will in this really gentle, caring way whenever there's a stressful moment. But with everybody else, he does not sound like that at all. And he does give a lot of attention and love and care to Will that he doesn't give to other people. Even when in season 1 with 11, now I do think they're cute in season 1 and in season 2 a little bit too, Mike and 11. And I think that's where a lot of people who still are on the 11 side, that's kind of what they go to when they talk about why they think it was always supposed to be 11 Endgame as well. They've been together since the beginning of the show. And they'll always reference how cute they were in earlier seasons. It's like, but the relationship completely declined.
Yeah.
season 3 onward, it's just a downhill spiral.
Mm-hmm.
Again, like you said earlier, if I were on that side of the aisle, I would be super upset with how it was handled. They barely had any time together in season 5 and in the end of season 4. And that final scene came out of nowhere. But the point is, to go back to the Mike and Will and, throughout earlier seasons, even in season 1, whenever 11 is no longer, I made videos about this in my series, whenever 11 is no longer able to help Mike find Will, he also kind of sets her to the side a little bit. It's like the way he feels or the passion that he seems to feel with regards to 11 slightly dissipates whenever he realizes that maybe, when they think Will's dead.
Mm-hmm.
He's mad at her. And I get why, right? There's a trauma response aspect. He thinks he just lost his best friend, but he kind of just disregards her temporarily until he hears Will's voice on her radio when she's trying to show Mike that Will is still alive. And then all of a sudden, interested again. And it's like it just keeps repeating itself, that pattern. And so, yeah, I don't know. I get that you can care about your friends, right? I care about my friends, and you can be compassionate and caring and loving with your friends, and that's normal. It's just that we don't see him do that with anybody else in the show, like you were saying.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing.
If that was just how they were portraying how Mike interacts with his friends, totally fair, valid. But why is he not like that with Lucas or Dustin or Max? Like, he's not like that with anyone else except for Will. And the other thing that I really picked up on this past season, this is one of the Byler scenes to me where I was like, all right, Matt might be onto something.
I might have cooked.
You might have cooked. It was right after Robin and Will had their talk about Robin coming out and how she found out that Vicky liked her and the whole situation with Tammy. And Will is like, well, how do you know if they like you back? And she says, oh, it's a bump on the shoulder or brush of the knee, whatever it was. And then basically right after that, you get a scene with Mike and Will walking, and Mike kind of bumps him on the shoulder, and you literally see Robin watching it and kind of smile at it. Like she sees what's happening.
Hold on. Keep talking.
And so it's like, what was that?
I got to pull up the Byler edit. The Byler edit. You know the one I'm talking about. I sent it to you.
Yeah, you did.
I sent it to you. And that was before you'd fully come around to it.
That was before I saw.
You guys know the one. It's the, hold on. It's when he pushes Mike.
Yeah.
When Will like kind of lightly, like lovingly shoves Mike on the shoulder. And it's the parallel between when 11 did that in season 3 and Mike looks so disgusted. But then with Will, he's like, it's such a perfect, the fact that you can line those scenes up like that.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's funny because when I did the rewatch series, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah.
I only saw that from the edit. And there's so many things like that though.
Right.
Where again, with the rain fight, that parallel, there was one of my favorite pieces of the Byler evidence is the way that Mike acts after 11 breaks up with him versus how he acts after he realizes he hurt Will's feelings in the rain fight scene.
Oh my God, yes.
He has that Mike Wheeler disgusted face after 11 breaks up with him. And the color grading is completely, obviously, it's yellow, it's bright, it's happy, as opposed to the rain fight where it's dark blue, gloomy, obviously it's raining. And the music choices in the two scenes are, just everything about the two scenes, they're shot the same exact way.
Right.
With the differences being the color grading and the emoting, the way the characters are emoting, and also just the general feeling the scenes give. One of them is very intense and sad, and it's hard to watch. And the other one is kind of like, like it's just a stupid breakup scene.
Yeah.
But it is a real breakup at the time, even though it's, whatever, people can argue it's a middle school breakup, it's not that serious, sure, but I mean that's just that's their age. So and if you try to apply that logic to the 11 breakup, then what about the Mike and Will scene? They're also still the same age. They're still middle schoolers. But anyway, you have that versus, after the Will rain fight scene, Mike looks distraught. He looks really upset that he hurt Will's feelings. He's calling Will's name. He chases after him in the storm, looking everywhere across Hawkins for him until eventually finding him at Castle Byers, all again in the midst of a storm. Whereas with 11, after he gets dumped by her, has the annoyed look on his face. And then we see him in the Wheeler basement, laying on the couch, eating chips, talking briefly about how annoying girls are to understand, and then burping and laughing about it and that whatever. He doesn't really seem to care.
Right.
There's no reason to have those parallels.
Yeah.
If not for it to be showcasing why that Byler is being built up and that actually is a real thing.
Right.
There's no reason.
And the thing is that if you even think, if someone wants to argue, well, the whole reason that Robin and Will had that conversation is to show Will that Mike is just his Tammy. That's not what happened, though. Robin's literally saying the reason that she knew Vicky was also interested are these subtle little things that she was doing to show that the feelings were reciprocated. And then why have a scene where Mike does kind of bump into Will and Robin's watching with a smile? What is the point in that scene other than to allude that Mike also has feelings for Will? That's not to show that he's his Tammy. That's not to show that.
No.
That is definitively not to show that. That doesn't make any sense if that's what the goal was. And so that was the main thing that I saw in this past season that felt so clear to me, to the point that you have to go, what were they doing? Like, what was the point in all of this?
What about the Mike Lego Batman moment where they perfectly recreated the Lego Batman meme that everybody comments on different people online on TikToks and whatnot? It's literally like a 1-to-1 with how fascinated Mike looks by Will having powers. And I get that he has powers.
Yeah.
It's just, to me, that's not really like the facial expression you'd get.
No.
Like, he never looks at 11 that way.
No,
he never
it was
looks
like
at 11 that way.
Yeah, it was.
He has seen 11 use powers. And besides maybe at the end of season 2, when he finally sees that 11 is alive and she walks in the door after saving all their lives from the Demodogs, he kind of has that facial expression.
Right.
That's the only time. And that's, again, that is before the downfall of 11. Why? And I agree with everything you said about the Robin, looking at those signs playing out between the two of them. And then even with the Tammy conversation, that was one of the things that really pissed me off, that people were trying to use as ammunition against Byler, because Tammy is a hallway crush that, as far as we know, I'm pretty sure they never even talked.
Yeah.
At least as far as we know. Even if I'm wrong about that, still the equivalent of a hallway crush, not someone that Robin actually had any sort of a relationship with. You cannot compare Mike to that for Will, because Mike and Will have been best friends and have been very close to each other in each other's lives for, I think, around 13 years by the time of, how old are you when you go to the preschool or kindergarten?
Like 5, I want to say.
So like 12 to 13 years by the time of season 5. That's a very long time. That's not the same thing. When Robin talked about seeing her film reel, right? She talked about seeing herself. I had all the answers. When we see Will's film reel, the first thing we see is Will and Mike together. We don't see Will by himself. It's Will and Mike together. And then, yes, we do get Jonathan later in there. We get Joyce later in there. But it's largely focused on Will and Mike in the beginning of that, at the very beginning of the film reel. So there's no comparison. I hate that comparison.
Yeah,
that shit pissed me off. When they brought that up again, too, later, when he's like, I just realized he was... I'm sorry, I'm not trying to make fun of the coming out scene, but when he said that shit in the coming out scene, I was like, that is the most absurd piece of dialogue that you could have included. I realized that he was just my Tammy. What do you mean? That makes no sense. That makes literally no sense. That doesn't make any sense at all. I hate it. I hate that so much. That really pissed me off.
I hate the coming out scene. I think they did it so wrong. I don't think they did it justice. That should have been the biggest moment for Will's character, and they made it genuinely a laughable moment. That so much so that there were so many people on the internet that hated that scene because it was genuinely that bad. We've talked about it on some of our other podcasts, but it was so bad. And to your point about the Tammy thing and comparing Mike to Will being Mike's Tammy or Will's Tammy, my biggest issue with that, besides just to your point that they have been friends for 12 plus years.
Yes.
You can't just be like, oh, it was just this little crush and it's not this big deal. The fact that they didn't even, and this is remove Byler from it, whether you wanted it to happen or not, it's bad writing to have Will clearly have feelings for Mike the entirety of the series.
Yeah.
Basically, he has feelings for his best friend. It's a really big plot point for Will's character. Finally comes out and admits that he has feelings for Mike, to Mike and to 20 other people in the press conference.
Yeah.
You're telling me they aren't going to have a talk about that? They're not going to have a talk more than what's chopped up to friends? No, best friends. Are you kidding me? Like, if my best friend told me that after 12 years they had secretly been in love with me the entire time, I'm gonna have a conversation with them about it. Whether you feel the same or not. It's not even about, you're just upset about Byler. No, I'm not. I wasn't hoping that it would happen. I was fine with it happening. I was fine with Malevolent happening. What happened was both were bad, and at least due respect to the writing and the character development. You don't think that it would also be a big emotional weight for Mike's character to hear that Will has had these feelings for him the entire time, and that it chops up to just being I should have known and I should have been there for you and we're still best friends. That's not a conversation about, hey, you just admitted that you've had feelings for me for a very long time. And how about we talk about that? How about we have any sort of conversation, whether it's I feel the same way about you or I don't feel the same way about you. It should be a conversation between the two characters. And that's not what we got. We got a jab at the audience and a fake out. And I think that's shitty. I genuinely think that's bad writing. And I think that it's queerbaiting.
Yeah.
And I think that, I don't know how else you can at least do respect to the storyline, like at least do that.
Yeah. Everything you said, fully agree. And I know we've touched on it before too, but the fact that they were never intending on
oh my God.
that Noah had to ask, and I've had people in my comments misinterpreting this. Noah did not ask for that specific scene and that specific writing choice. He just asked for that whole plot line to actually have resolution. I've had some people who've been trying to debate in my comments. It's the minority of people.
Yeah.
A quick side tangent with regards to queerbaiting and people saying it wasn't queerbaiting, everything with Byler. There's multiple different definitions or different types of queerbaiting. It perfectly fits multiple definitions of narrative queerbaiting and queerbaiting in the marketing. That just is what it is. And it's an objective fact. It's not my opinion. It's literally, it perfectly fits the definition. So anyway, in my videos that I've been making about different reasons why it was queerbaiting, I've been having people say, I made a video about this scene, and I've had some people who are malevolent saying, or anti-Bylers, I don't really know, saying, well, it's not queerbaiting because this is what Noah Schnapp asked for. No, it's not. He didn't ask for that specific writing decision. He asked for resolution.
No, he literally thought it was so fucking crazy that they weren't going to wrap up this massive plot point.
Yeah.
And said that you guys have to do something. That is what it was.
And I'm pretty sure that once he saw what they were doing, I think maybe he was asking for more, or he was giving more commentary. I don't remember exactly when this happened, so I might be a little off on this. And they said something along the lines to the effect of, that's enough, Noah. Like that's crazy to me. To me, I think that's absurd.
But you know what's funny is that now, having seen, I didn't watch the documentary, but I saw plenty of clips of the documentary. And now that you've seen the behind the scenes with the Duffer brothers, it's not that shocking, because guess what? Someone literally told them that not having demodogs, demogorgons, demobats in the abyss would have been insane. Literally said that. And they basically went, we don't care.
Yeah.
So,
It's crazy.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
We don't care.
Yeah.
So it's not shocking to, hear or think that Noah probably was advocating for at least a Byler wrap up, at least give them some sort of resolution. Because again, whether you're a Byler or you're not, if you remove that, it was a massive plot point throughout the entire series, and it's a huge development for Will's character.
Yeah.
To just completely ignore it.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't believe it. Along those lines too, you have the painting and that not being addressed, and the fact that they said that was going to be addressed.
Yeah, they did.
And I even forgot about this the last time we've talked about this, but there was even, so in the promotional material, because I made, hundreds of videos leading up to season 5. And some of what I covered as well was these individual TikToks, Reels, shorts they were making where they were, just shot on an iPhone, and they were going up to the different actors and bringing them like an old prop and asking, oh, do you remember this? Whatever, let's talk about it. They had one of those specifically about the painting. They didn't do a ton of those, by the way. It was like a small number overall, or at least like per character. There wasn't a ton. And for Finn, that was one of the ones they brought to him. They didn't bring it to Noah. They brought it to Finn. And there was a whole video about the painting. Finn himself said in a earlier interview, I believe from 2024, I want to say, that it was going to happen, that was going to be addressed, that would come back into play. And instead, much like with the way they were intending on resolving Byler, instead, the only way it ever comes back at all is for maybe a 1-second shot in the background. It's never addressed, of when Mike is giving the speech about, where the storyteller keeps telling stories, and you see him on his, typing away, and it's in the background. That's all you get. The painting was a huge plot point throughout the entirety of season 4. From the very first scene, we see not Noah. We see Will working on it. We see 11, or we hear 11 in her voiceover, where it's actually her letter that Mike is reading, talking about how Will has been working on this for someone he likes, or she says, I think it's a girl he likes. And then we see that he was originally going to leave it behind in his room, but after him and Mike had the conversation, the one that literally also perfectly parallels the 11 argument from the episode prior, only with Mike and Will, it's the you didn't have to. And it's like such a different vibe but again, in the previous one, it's Mike saying, or 11 saying, you never say it. He's like, I say it, versus you didn't have to. It's just a different vibe, and the facial expressions, whatever. Point is, that scene gives Will hope again. So they have a specific shot again where when they're about to leave the house, Will like has a moment where he's like, oh, he needs to go grab it because he was going to leave it behind. And it's not like he forgot about it. He was going to leave it behind. And he specifically grabs it. And then you have the scene in the van, the really big van scene. That was a huge deal. That was a really big deal. So this is a huge plot point throughout all of season 4. It's all about Mike and Will's dynamic, their relationship together. That's what it's all focused on. It's also, I might be pronouncing this wrong, the Cyrano trope. It's when you have like an object, for example, I believe, I'm not articulating this perfectly well, but where one character, in this case, it would be Will, is attributing his feelings for Mike to another character's feelings through the object. So like he's saying that, oh, well, 11 commissioned this. This was her idea, even though the painting is symbolic of his feeling, the way he feels about Mike. And that never got addressed either. So it's like, okay, so either A, we have Mike in the future Mike believes that lie that 11 was the one who commissioned this, and that it was not in fact something that was symbolic of Will's feelings for him, or they just talked about it off screen. Those are the only two options. And I hate that. That's stupid. I hate that so much.
Well, I feel like that's how they've been answering.
Yeah, I know it happened off screen. Yeah.
Any plot hole or inconsistency. It's just, oh, well, it happened off screen.
Yeah.
Really? Because since when?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's weird that, and I guess my problem with what they did also comes down to, you can't really hype up your audience or say, yeah, that this is going to be addressed. You can't have them say, yeah, we'll address the painting and you know, them making comments about Byler and that you're going to get a resolution to that. And then there just be nothing. You can't really have them do that and then expect the audience to not feel a way about it. And I think that, I know we briefly talked about it too, but I just think the Steve fake out and the Byler fake out feel very similar in the sense that they know what the audience wants and was hoping for or hoping not for. Obviously, no one wanted Steve to die. But so they did the fake out scene to, you know, immediately hit those emotions with the audience. They did the exact same thing with Byler because they knew that there's this massive fan base for these two characters to get together. And then they did a fake out is an insane way to handle that. It's a cheap, very cheap way to handle that.
Especially for a show that, you know, from its inception talked about how it's for the outcasts. That's what the show's for. It's made for the underrepresented. And yet that's how they handle underrepresented communities. And it's just, and it's not just, even with, I made a video about this too, but even outside of Byler, right, you have one other queer couple in the show, Robin and Vicky. And there's a huge, at least towards the end of season 4, that's a huge part of Robin's role in season 4 towards the end. She's really, or not just towards the end, from the beginning. I think she talks about that in the car ride with Steve on the way to the assembly, where she has feelings for Vicky. And then there's the Fast Times thing where Steve's like, you know who pauses Fast Times? I don't remember the exact time in the movie, but it's all focused on Vicky. Then you have the scene of her and Vicky together at the assembly, and then we have the scene where they're in the store and she sees Vicky with a boyfriend, which is also, again, another parallel to Byler, especially the way that scene is shot. I think I talked about that before, where you have the scene where Mike, Will, Argyle, Jonathan, where they finally arrive at the Nina Project, and there's a shot where it's like Mike and 11 here, and Will's kind of out of focus at first, but then he's in focus between them. You have an identical shot where it's Vicky and her boyfriend here, and then the same thing with Robin. And what ends up happening with Robin and Vicky? They end up getting together, and Vicky ends up realizing that she's not straight, and she's no longer with her boyfriend, and then Vicky gets with Robin. But what I was getting at is that, you know, they're together. They don't really have any issues besides Vicky being a little understandably anxious when there's, you know, the military chasing after them and monsters and the end of the world. And overall, though, things seem fine with them. And the whole reason we had Robin's Tammy arc was so that, you know, later, after accepting herself, she could find her Vicky. That was the big thing. That was the whole thing, right? Huge part of Robin's character. And then Vicky's just gone, and apparently they broke up. Off screen, they broke up, going into the epilogue. And the Duffer's rationale is because, well, how often do you know high school relationships that work out? But you have other high school relationships that work out in the show. And there was no narrative reason to break them up. It served nothing for the plot. And so my point is, they're just sidelining. Like all of the queer couples and queer relationships and queer characters just get sidelined at the end of the show. Specifically at the end of the show. Because I know Will gets a lot of focus in volume 1. He kind of gets sidelined in volume 2. Besides the coming out scene, which again, neither of us like, he gets sidelined for the most part. Yeah. And a lot of what was set up for him earlier in the show and in season 5 just gets disregarded. Doesn't matter. Literally, even in the final battle, talk about sidelining the queer characters. When they were talking about the reason that when they were asked in interviews why Will didn't get hurt in response to the Mind Flayer and Vecna being attacked, because by previous show logic, he should have been in extreme pain and maybe should have even died. And they said that, oh, he was experiencing pain off screen. We just wanted to focus on the main heroes. Is he not one of the main heroes? Because I thought he was one of the main 3 characters of the show, but apparently he's not. So,
yeah. Another thing that we should also talk about that now means nothing, and again, why did you do it? Because I think where I come from with Byler is, then why did you do it? Mm-hmm. Why did you put little hints at their relationship throughout the entire series? And one of the big things is blue and yellow.
Oh yeah.
And even in the end, in the scene where in the finale where Mike is going upstairs from the basement, it's blue and yellow.
The color grading
is blue and yellow.
Yeah.
And what are we now not just supposed to think that that's not intentional and that it just meant nothing? Yeah. And then it's also in the fields, the like flower field scene, I think too.
Yeah, the flowers.
Yeah. What's the point in doing that for no reason if it's not going to go anywhere?
It doesn't make sense. That scene obviously doesn't make sense for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
That's also a queer. I made a whole video about why that scene alone is a queer baiting scene, because you have 11 by yourself in a field of dead flowers, far ahead of everybody else. And then at the time, obviously we know Jonathan and Nancy ended up breaking up, but you have Jonathan and Nancy together, Joyce and Hopper together, and Mike and Will together. All 3 of them in a field of these blooming flowers. And you get a shot of each of them. So they do the wide shot, and then they do the shot of each of those couples together. And then 11 by herself. Why would you do that? If you're not intending to, through the visual language of the show the potential of these 2 characters ending up together romantically, why not have them all in a straight line or just kind of all bunched together?
Right.
And you could still have 11 by yourself. But why do you need to do it that way? And then with the colors, those colors are everywhere with regards to Mike and Will all of the time. And it's always, there's the scene at Rinkomania where I think it's flipped, right? I think Mike is wearing yellow.
Mike's wearing yellow.
But he usually wears blue.
Yeah.
But above Mike wearing yellow, you have like a blue light, and then it's staggered. And then above Will, you have a yellow light. And it's just, and it goes back and forth like it's like blue, yellow, blue, yellow. That is such an intentional, that's not the real, that's an intentional lighting choice.
Right. And I think it goes back to, one, if you're not going to be intentional with your set design, with your color grading, with all of the different elements, why do you tell your audience to pay attention to those things? Because there's no coincidences. They have made it very clear that everything they do is intentional. That's how they set it up. So yeah, you're watching it with thinking that everything is intentional. And then it comes out, what was the intent? We don't know.
None of it mattered.
It didn't actually matter. And so I think that, it's also those things have to be intentional. It's not just happenstance that those things are filmed the way that they are. And so, yeah, I think that there's a lot of people that I've seen that will also say that we read into things. But there are people that genuinely think about when they're directing and when they're writing a show, think about how they can subtly kind of show what they're planning on doing before they do it through visual elements. That's a very large part of filmmaking.
It's a huge part.
So, it's not these things, we're making these things up. They're genuinely there. And it comes down to, then why put them there? If that's not what you're going to do, why put them there? And it's not a reading into things. It's just they're there. This is what they were alluding to. This isn't what happened. And then it just makes it so it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. And it's, to those people, I would also say it's critical film analysis. It's actually basic film analysis. It's a basic understanding of filmmaking. It's not even the bar for entry there is not that high. These things are relatively simple to understand. If you know anything about making movies, these, like you said, these things they don't happen by accident. That's not how it works.
It's impossible for them to.
No, that's not how it works. Everything is usually very controlled. There might sometimes be like something random that happens that it's just you have to keep it in there, that's not expected, not planned. Like with Lord of the Rings, I mean, everyone likes it. It's the meme, but Aragorn kicking the helmet and literally breaking his foot, breaking his toes, and screaming in pain, and them keeping it because he really sold it, and then he kept going with it. That wasn't planned.
Yeah.
But most of the time, things are planned. And again, I've talked earlier about like the parallels, for example. All of those parallels, not only do they serve no other purpose, and I've had nobody, even when inviting people to debate me on that in a live stream, no one's been able to explain those. But those are intentional. You don't block shots and frame shots the same exact way when creating these parallels between these different couples, always against Byler most of the time, if you're not intending for the audience to draw a comparison between the two. There's literally no other reason to do it. And if it wasn't about Byler, for example, those parallels, if that was not intentional, then you would have parallels like that with other friendships, but you don't. You don't get that ever. You only get it with them. And so I just don't think, I don't know. I don't think people understand these things. We're intentional. We aren't looking too far into it. We aren't delusional. I genuinely think that from what I've seen, which again is a narrow point of view, because even though I've been exposed to a ton of Stranger Things content from Malevin's and from Byler's, it's still a bubble ultimately, because there's, 1 billion posts that go out every day on different social media platforms. It feels like the Byler community is a lot stronger in film analysis, objective film analysis, than the Malevins. I'm not saying there are not Malevins that excel in that area. Maybe there are, and I just haven't been exposed to that content. But that's just my take, based on what I've seen and based on the other Byler creators that I know outside of myself, where everything that I focused on, I focused on things that are essentially irrefutable. There was other pieces of evidence that I did not include that you could make an argument for, and I've seen people make an argument for, like a lot of the shared looks, Mike looking at Will's lips or vice versa. I never talked about the Mike voice that we talked about earlier, but that is something that a lot of people have focused on, because you could still try to make a counter argument for that. I try to focus on things that you can't really make a counter argument for.
Right.
And so anyway, though, to your overall point too, yeah, they literally made the show with the idea that you guys have to pay attention to every detail. And so that's what people did. That's what the Byler community did. And that's how we came to these conclusions. And so for the people who think that, you're just looking too far into it, that's what they told us to do. We just understood the assignment. And it feels like a lot of people, in the Stranger Things fandom, this also applies. This is like a general movie and TV thing we could talk about at some point, that I hear all the time in my comment sections where people just say, "You're looking too far into this. Just enjoy it. Just enjoy what you get." I hate that. I hate that shit.
Oh, I
So
hate
I
it.
hate it so much because that's literally the reason we're getting so much slop nowadays, is because there's enough people that have that mindset now that don't really care, and maybe they're on their phones while they're watching something and scrolling, that they don't care if things aren't, well thought out or consistent. They don't care if these parallels I'm talking about, or a lot of the other evidence that we don't have time to get into because there's so much. Again, I have over 60 videos covering it. They don't care if that evidence goes nowhere. They're like, it doesn't matter that much. It's not that deep. Just take it and like it. That's literally what it is.
Yeah.
And I hate it. But especially with Stranger Things, they told us explicitly for years, we are making every detail matter. It's all going to matter. Trust me. And we're going to answer all of these questions by the end of the final season. And none of that was true.
And,
it seems.
Well, and they literally had 3 years to do it, too.
Yeah.
It's not like they... And honestly, maybe we can spend a little bit of time talking about the documentary briefly.
Yeah. I hated the documentary.
I didn't
Besides
watch
the final shots.
Yeah.
Those were cute.
I didn't watch the full thing, but I saw plenty of clips. And what I will say is that where I get to, and there are a lot of people, when people want to talk about the finale and, oh, you Stranger Things fans are so upset, but it's still not even nearly as bad as Game of Thrones. And, what it comes down to me at least, is that with Game of Thrones, they ran out of the source material. They were writing the series based off of the source material. The last book was not published, still is not published. So they kind of just had to wing it. So it's not shocking that was that bad. Was it terrible? Yes. Is it one of the most disappointing endings to a series that I loved? Yes, it was disappointing. And they could have done a better job, 100%. The difference with Stranger Things is, one, they had 3 years, 500 million?
Yes.
And
it's a lot.
And they were the writers. So it's not like they ran out of source material and went, damn, we don't know what to do next. You literally wrote the thing. So how do you not know? And how are we now seeing a documentary where you're going into the finale and you didn't even finish writing the finale when you started filming it? Do you know how diabolically insane that is? To have 3 years and $500 million and zero respect to actually take that and do something more than just, we don't know, and then disregarding people that are bringing up great points like the Demodogs and the Demobats and the Demogorgons, and having to have Noah Schnapp argue that they just basically completely disregarded an incredibly important plot line for Will's character.
Yep.
That is insane. That makes it worse to me.
It does. The documentary made it worse.
The documentary made it way worse.
The documentary, to me, what it ultimately did, since obviously we're just touching on it briefly, and it was 2 hours, so there's a lot that happened in that documentary. To me, it really, when we finished watching the finale, there was still the possibility that something went wrong on set, or the things that were out of their control happened. There was the writers' strikes. There was, I don't know, they didn't film during lockdowns, but the writers' strikes, that was a big thing. I believe that was in 2022 or 2023. I don't remember. Anyway, it was around then. And there's a ton of different mistakes that could have happened, or maybe Netflix butchered it, right? Maybe Netflix got involved. The studio interference, that does happen a lot. The documentary made it very clear to me that no, it was literally just the Duffers. They were the problem. The production teams were on top of their stuff. They were getting on top of the Duffers, asking for guidance, asking for the story so that they could create the things they needed to make this final product as good as it possibly could be. And the other writers, the one you mentioned earlier, I know his first name is Paul, I believe. I don't remember what his last name is. the one who brought up the Demogorgons,
Yeah.
and it would be insane if there was
Yeah.
no other monsters in the abyss. Clearly, the other writers involved on the show, they were clearly thinking critically about these things. There was another writer who brought up Kali and her outfit. I think it was a writer. Her Kali's outfit in the final episode and how it should be like an empowering costume. And instead, she's in like this oversized, baggy flannel. And she, anyway, and you had Jamie Campbell Bower clearly talking about the importance of delving into the intricacies of Henry Creel's character. And there's like, oh yeah, I didn't think about that.
Yeah,
that's
literally.
Crazy.
No, it's crazy.
That's crazy. And again, yes, 3 years, a lot of money. And I'm sure, I don't know exactly how much they were paid. I'm sure it was a lot considering how much the actors were paid. So it's just, they had all this time. And again, it made it very clear to me that, especially because I think it's funny, they had no role in the creation of that documentary, which makes it seem like Netflix
they knew
or someone knew, and they were like, we're not taking the blame for this.
We need to
We're
expose
making
them.
this documentary and show everyone what was going on this set. And so anyway, though, it's just the documentary made it all of that very clear to me. And what makes it worse, honestly, and this is a problem that happens a lot in Hollywood in general, but their repeated insistence that they had everything planned out from so long ago, not from the beginning of season 1, but from right after season 1 was a success, right? Because originally the show was an anthology series. They were so insistent that they had it all planned, every detail. They knew exactly how the show was going to end. They knew what the finale was going to be. But then in the documentary, it's very clear they didn't. They even say that. There's even a line in the documentary that's gone viral, and it's turned into like somewhat of a meme at this point, where they're saying, we know, like, the outline of like what's going to happen at the very end, like the very end of the finale. We just have to figure it's like we just have to figure out everything else that leads up to that. So you don't know what's going to happen, because there's so much more to a show than just the final shot. That doesn't mean you knew everything that was going to happen in the whole show. So just don't lie about it. Just be honest. I don't know why.
Yeah, crazy.
It makes it worse.
It's crazy to feel like they procrastinated their own show. Like they took those 3 years and then came back and they were like, shit, we got to do something now. And then this is what we got.
It's just a shame.
Yeah. And the thing about the documentary, from the clips that I have seen, what it shows me is they just didn't really care. And you can just tell with how they talk about it and how they talk to the other people that do care about it. Like you're talking about the scene with Jamie Campbell Bower analyzing, well, Henry, like his character's going through this emotional, experience, and it was during the cave scene, I think.
Yeah.
And they're just like, yeah, sure.
And then they didn't do anything.
And they didn't do anything about it. And so it's how can you not think that they don't care? They clearly didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And then it affected, Byler, which the problem with that is to your point, obviously I don't have that lived experience, but there are a lot of people that do, that were Byler fans watching and hoping for it. And they didn't handle it with any care. Because again, I don't think it's bad if they didn't do that. I'm not mad that they didn't do anything with it. I think that it still would be hard to explain some of them, but you could have wrapped it up in a way where it was meaningful and brought resolution to Byler, to Mike and Will's characters individually. That's not what they did, though. And that's such a disrespectful thing to do. And then there's so many people out there that, like, imagine that being your experience. And the Duffers are just honestly kind of making fun of you.
Yeah. It's not my lived experience either, but I know from my own comment sections how many people were hurt that are in that community by what was done, or how many people did see themselves in Mike specifically, is what I've seen a lot of, where they felt like had it worked out in the way that Mike was somebody who was struggling with his identity and was repressing his true feelings and his true self, and had feelings for their best friend, Will, who also has feelings for them. But there was a lot of people who identified with that a lot, like a lot, thousands. And all of those people were really hurt by the way things were handled. And I would say where I would disagree, and we've talked about this briefly, but like think I think it is bad that it didn't happen only because of the buildup. If the buildup wasn't there, and if they had wrapped everything up in season 4, maybe they had the conversation in season 4 where it was addressed that Will had those feelings for Mike. And if Mike didn't have those feelings for Will, they could have wrapped that up and given Will a new love interest and allowed him to actually find love, not a 3-second scene in a bar with Carlton, I think is his name, who we don't know anything about, and we don't even see anything other than like this on the arm, and that's it. They could have actually resolved it earlier if they weren't intending on it happening. I do think it's really bad that it didn't happen, not because, again, I don't have the lived experience. I'm not projecting my own experience onto the potential of that happening. It's just a matter of, it's bad because it's queerbaiting, because of the amount of evidence that you intentionally, deliberately put in the show to make people believe that this could happen, and then you stripped away their hope at the very last second. You kept that hope, you kept giving them breadcrumbs throughout all of season 5 up until that point. And I think that's why, for me, I do think it was wrong. It was wrong. The way they handled it was wrong, of course. I don't really think that there was any meaningful resolution they could have given it if there was a rejection by the time of the finale that would have made it okay. That would have made what they did earlier in the show okay. If it had happened earlier, even in the beginning of season 5, or again at the end of season 4, that's different, because then it doesn't feel like you're stringing people along.
Right.
But it's the fact that they didn't do that.
They didn't need to do it in the finale. And I do think that I have a different perspective, in the sense that I think if they were to have done Byler, I actually wish they would have done it in season 4. And the reason that I say that is because I do recognize, as much as, I think there are people, when you're watching something, you should be paying attention. But there are people that are just casually watching it. And that's, that is a very significant portion. So I do think for people who are casually watching, and also maybe aren't in any of the fandom world, they would watch that and be like, what the fuck is happening? Because for them, we've brought up Legend of Korra a bunch of times, but it would feel like a Legend of Korra, where all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, like where did this come from? And I kind of feel like it could have, if they would have done it in the season finale, if you put it in the exact same time frame that they had the talk on the electrical tower, it would have felt really weird to probably your general audience. Whereas I think if you had started it in season 4, even if it was at the very end of season 4, and then you got to also, and I also think as someone who would have wanted Byler to happen, then you also get to actually see kind of the relationship develop over a season, which would feel a lot more satisfying than waiting through an entire season, an entire series, to get it to happen at the end and not even really see how that dynamic plays out. How does that dynamic play out within their friend group with Lucas and with Dustin? How does that dynamic play out between their families? It would have been a really interesting thing to do. So I wish, if they were gonna do it, I think they should have done it in season 4. Yeah. And I also think that I'm happy they didn't do it in season 5, which I know irks you.
I don't agree with that.
But I am happy they didn't do it in season 5, solely just based off of the fact that I don't think they could have done it justice.
So that's where I again, we've talked about, like, I also agree somewhat, but then disagree, because it's, for me, I agree that it would not be ideal for them to have done it in the finale. I still think it would be better for them to do it in the finale than to not do it at all, based on what was previously established. With regards to what you just said, that's the other thing. I agree that I had no faith by the time of Volume 2. And I didn't like Volume 2. I liked Volume 1, but I didn't love Volume 1 as much as a lot of people did. But I still liked it. I still was positive on the show after Volume 1. After Volume 2, I had lost faith in a lot of their writing ability, and I do think it would have been poorly handled and not adequately fleshed out. But even with that, where we disagree is I still would have rather had it happen. To preface again, not because of my own biases, just because of the evidence that was there. I still would have rather had it happen in season 5 than not have it happen at all. And I also agree, though, it would be more ideal if they did have it happen earlier. When it comes to general audiences, I don't love how a lot of movies and shows do have to sometimes cater to the general audience, because those are the people that I do think sometimes can contribute to cinema not being cinema anymore.
I fully agree.
Yeah,
I do
because
fully
those are the
agree.
people that don't really care.
No, I
But
agree.
I hear what you're saying. That still is a part of the equation. So yeah, I do. In an ideal world, they would do it earlier if they were going to do it, or they would shut it down earlier, as to avoid queerbaiting and hurting a lot of people who really invested a ton of time into the show, more time than anyone else in the fandom, by the way, in my opinion, because that's conformity gate. That came from Byler. That came from the Byler community.
Yeah.
Everything that happened between seasons 4 and 5, when it was dry and the general audience, it wasn't trendy anymore to make videos on TikTok that were going viral using Running Up That Hill. But the people who carried the conversation and continued to carry the hype, a lot of those people, a significant portion, were people from the Byler community. And so this is a huge portion of your fan base that was really dedicated, that really championed your show and really helped make it what it is amongst fans, meaning they helped increase the viewership. They helped increase the popularity of the show. To do something that's so hurtful to them like that, I would take a scenario in which that didn't happen any day over it not happening at all. So I think, I don't know if I just said that. I don't even know what I just said. But regardless,
I know what you mean.
Yeah, so I think people will get what I mean. But ultimately, I do agree, though. They should have either shut it down before season 5 or built it up in a more obvious way before season 5. Again, to me, it's obvious once I went back to do the rewatch. You can't expect the general audience to do that. So you have to make it more obvious.
Right. Yeah, they needed to make it more. Yeah.
And they should have done that in season 4 if they were going to do it, or they should have shut it down promptly in season 4 so that you aren't stringing that portion of the audience along. And again, so that you can allow Will to, move on, and in a way that doesn't feel like overnight, where it's like, oh yeah, this guy that I was just like in love with, nah, it's fine.
Did you see all the memes where in that last scene where they're playing D&D, where everyone was joking about how Will got the ick for Mike? Did you see this?
No.
It's so funny.
No.
It's so funny.
No, I haven't seen it.
He's like super into being the dungeon master, and there's just this look on Will's face, and everyone's like, Will got the ick, and it's so funny to me. I'm gonna have to show you.
You have to show me.
I'm gonna have to show you. But I do think, yeah, to your point, they just needed to either have done it earlier, whether it was going to be shutting it down or making Byler happen. And then the last thing I feel like I want to bring up is paralleling Malevin's, because I do think that I wouldn't have been unhappy with Malevin if they had also done that better. It's the fact that they made that entire relationship awful and
terrible,
low-key very toxic.
Malevin bones, as Spencer would say.
Yeah. And then if we had seen even in season 5 some big resolution between Mike and 11, that their characters, almost if you had gotten a Jonathan and Nancy scene between Mike and 11 where they finally are airing out all of their problems that they clearly have, in a way that they resolve those issues and are stronger and better for it. I know you probably just, but I wouldn't have hated that either. But what I hated is that they had them basically interact twice the entire season 5, and none of them were that meaningful. And then all of a sudden in the end, we're supposed to buy in that they're this awesome couple, and Mike still can't even tell 11 that he loves her. So I think that when it comes to Malevins, y'all should be pissed off too. That's all.
You know, I don't actually entirely disagree. Again, I'm not going to keep repeating it, but just as long as they also addressed adequately the Mike and Will stuff early enough. I don't actually, if they had addressed and closed the loop on the Mike and Will stuff, yes, I would actually agree that they would have, if they would have done something like that, I wouldn't be so against the idea of them ending up together in the end. The only reason that I'm against it outside of the Byler evidence is just because of their relationship has been terribly handled since season 3. It's all been downhill. When I hear people say, like when I was on that one live stream debating some of those creators, and again, none of them, I'm not just saying this, none of them were able to have pushback for my points I was making or all of the evidence I was addressing, including the parallels. The only thing they kept repeating was, well, but what about Mike and 11? Their relationship has been built up all 4 seasons leading into season 5. And my perspective is, no, it was built up for 2 seasons and then so downhill.
Yeah.
And it's a toxic relationship. And also those people who say, you know, you just hate 11. No, 11 is miserable in this relationship. She's constantly left insecure and guessing as to what Mike feels about her. Even in the conversation on the rooftop in the beginning of season 5, one of the only conversations they have in season 5, she is so obviously insecure about the future of their relationship after all of the events of the show have concluded. That's what she's asking him about. To me, that seems really obvious, at least. Some people didn't perceive it that way. To me, that's exactly what she was asking about. She doesn't seem secure. And that makes sense because where we left them off in season 4 was, you know, Mike did give that speech when she was in the tub, which was clearly inspired by what Will told him about the painting, but they don't actually talk after that. That's that last interaction Mike and 11 really have in season 4 is the brief reunion when they arrive at the Nina Project. Before that was the fight. They don't have, so she's insecure at the start of season 5, and that makes sense. So no, it's that like 11 deserves better. So I do care about 11 as a character, but ultimately to your point, I wouldn't be against that. It's the fact that they didn't do it.
They didn't do either.
If there was 11, I don't even want to say build up. If there was like a revival of their relationship and then a build up towards the end, that's different. That's totally a different scenario. But when you go from barely any screen time together for the majority of season 4 and season 5, and the screen time they do have is largely negative, to that final scene they have together in the void, that comes out of nowhere. That is not an earned. There was I felt nothing watching that scene.
Oh,
I should have probably felt some. You're supposed to. You're supposed to be feeling something, but I felt nothing because I'm like, this came out of nowhere.
Have you seen?
Where is this coming from?
After the documentary, everyone's saying that Millie Bobby Brown and why am I forgetting his name? Finn. Finn
Wolfhard.
Finn Wolfhard have more chemistry in that than they did in their final on-screen moments together. As their characters. They have a
really intimate hug. Behind the scenes.
In their last moment, it's awkward. It's so uncomfortable. He literally has had more chemistry with Will in season 5 than he has with 11. So no, they overall just they honestly, I don't know if they could have done it worse.
No. I love this edit so much.
I have seen this. You did.
Everyone's going to know what it is. It's perfect.
It's perfect.
But they do have more chemistry.
They do.
But no, I know you didn't watch the documentary, but they do share some like intimate hugs where it's an actual like real hug versus what is happening. That I still don't understand how somebody reviewed that final shot and was like That's
great.
good.
That's sick.
That's the one. That's the one right there. I felt nothing though. Yeah, I felt nothing because it just came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're an 11 fan, I would be disappointed.
For sure.
I would be super. You should be. Your relationship, your ship was also handled poorly. That ship was also sunk. That it was handled so terribly.
They sunk 2 ships with
3, 4, because Jancy, Stancy, 5.
Robin and Vicky.
Literally, it's a meme. It's a meme, but Stonathan got more. That's a ship.
Did get more.
Stonathan got more attention.
Yeah.
Than Byler did.
Yeah.
In the finale.
No, literally though. And also, the only couple that genuinely had a good ending was Lucas and Max.
Yeah, well, besides that one weird line, but yeah, besides that, I liked it. I didn't like that line.
No, I did not like that line.
You're just looking so sexy right now.
Yeah,
I was like,
all right.
That came out of nowhere. Why is Lucas just relegated to being Max's horny boyfriend and nothing else? And I know earlier in the show he's not always that way, but like he gets no development either. He's literally he's relegated to simply being Max's boyfriend for so long.
No, that's actually so true.
He gets no personal development at all.
All he does in season 5 is just
season 4
and season 4.
Just Max.
It's just Max.
I mean, I guess he gets a little bit of a little ounce of development in season 4 when you get the I never should have knocked line when he's talking about how he shouldn't have tried to be popular.
Yeah.
Okay, that was kind of cool. Besides that in the show, he gets nothing. He gets nothing but Max, which I mean, I don't know. But I do like them as a couple together.
I do like them as a couple, but that is a good point.
Well, yeah, I think that's...
We did our next... We may do a part 2.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe. But Matt and I did go see Lord of the Rings extended editions in theaters when they were re-released. And so we are planning on chatting about that. There's a lot happening with Marvel.
Daredevil Born Again trailer. I'll show you it.
I'm pretty sure isn't the Brand New Day coming out soon too? The
trailer?
The trailer.
There's a rumor that started 2 days ago that they're not going to play any Marvel trailers at the Super Bowl. Which I'm like, that movie comes out in 6 months and there has been nothing outside of some of those promotional images that people just shot because they were shooting the movie in public streets.
Right, yeah.
So I'm surprised to hear that, especially because we've gotten 4 Doomsday trailers already. So it's like, where's the Spider-Man brand? But maybe that could be wrong. Is the Super Bowl this Sunday?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
And then we also there's definitely some Star Wars stuff happening.
There's a lot. We never talked about Kathleen Kennedy.
I know.
How have we not talked about that?
I know.
We should talk about that.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, we should talk about that.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
Yeah, that's a big deal. I'm surprised we never talked about that.
I know.
Yeah.
I celebrated.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Yeah. We have to talk about that.
Hope is kindled, as Gandalf would say.
Hope is back.
Hope is kindled. But we will talk about Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, Daredevil Born Again. That comes out in like a month and a half, by the way.
Crazy.
So Daredevil Born Again, we don't really need to talk that much about the Stranger Things Tales from 85. I've made some videos about it. I'll show you the trailer. It looks pretty buns to me and creates more continuity issues, but we can briefly touch on it. That could be like a 10-minute segment.
We can chat. But
anyway, there's a lot we need to talk about.
There's a lot coming out, so stay tuned. But thanks for watching and like and subscribe.
Yeah. We'll see you guys in the next one.